Another edition of the program, The Forum. This time around, our guest is Solomon Agborem. He is a journalist working with the Star newspaper and member of the pool of journalists of the United Nations Center for Human Rights and Democracy for Central Africa. With him, we will be talking about the press freedom in Cameroon, the Anglophone crisis, and also the inevitable crisis, or what, if you wish, that is the boycott or a call not to celebrate by groups of political parties celebrating what? The May 20th National Day. Please do not go away. We shall be right back. Our guest today is Solomon Agborem. He is a journalist working with the Star newspaper. If you could recall, we had his colleague here, Elie, and we hope that he is going to be the same like his colleague. But this time around, everybody, we should admit, has his or her own opinion, and we respect that of Elie, in spite of the fact that on social media, he was really being shredded into pieces. As I announced at the introduction of this program, we will be talking about press freedom in Cameroon, Anglophone crisis, and also the call for no celebration by a group of political parties led by the largest intra and extra parliamentary opposition political party, the Social Democratic Front. Mr. Agborem, it's a pleasure to have you here as guest today.
The pleasure is mine, Smith, to have extended your invitation to me, and I'm delighted to share my views on this very enlightening program before.
Thank you. Let me begin by asking you your take on the state of press freedom in Cameroon. What is your take on it?
Well, I think that when we talk about press freedom, I think we're looking at a society where journalists can be able to do their work in the very best of working conditions. Journalists can be able to do their work without oppression, without pressure from either the media houses or authorities that concern. We're looking at press freedom wherein you can be able to publish something and you don't get threatened for having published or circulated information against someone or concerning a particular event, and some feels that it should be the way they wanted it to be. When we talk about press freedom in Cameroon, I think we still have a long way to go, keeping in mind that we still observe and witness pressmen and women being harassed, being dragged to court, being imprisoned. It obtains in some other countries, but I think that our country, which is democratic in a setting, has still got a long way to go in terms of ensuring that the journalist is protected while he performs his duty of informing the public that he's called upon to inform. So, to my own critical take, we still have a long way to go in Cameroon in terms of press freedom.
Okay, we still have a long way to go, but what do you make of this statement made by the Minister of Communications, Issa Bakari, who says press freedom ends where journalists' articles or writings or speeches is a threat to national unity?
Well, I don't know which law he is quoting, and I don't know which text he's referring to that. That's his opinion. But I think that as far as the ethics and deontology of the profession is concerned, the journalist protects his source. His source is his power. His source is his key. And if he talks about it ends where the state is unity or whatsoever sovereignty is threatened, it's the opinion of the minister. And I also wish to state here that in as much as you, someone is trained in the profession, you actually know what we called in the profession gatekeeping. And you should know at what point in time to release certain information and how it should be relayed to the public as well. And that's where the issue of responsibility steps in. If I think that this information I have, if I put it out in the different mediums, it's going to create a stir. I should be able to be responsible enough to know that at this time, if this information goes out, it may have this it may cause certain effect which may be disastrous not only to me but to the community and to the country as a whole. So the issue of responsibility steps in. But I don't think it comes to a point where a minister will say it ends, which means it's a total declaration that here we control the press, and if you overstep your boundary, we come in and we put in the pressure on you, and we can do anything that we want to do with you. So I think such statements are uncalled for, and at the point where it is coming not from another ministry, but from the ministry that manages communication, it's worrisome.
It's worrisome. And now the question is, now what do you make of this series of suspensions of programs or trying to obstruct a guest in a program or to take part in a program? For example, our colleague Dipita Tongo, who is the host of a program on STV, Entretien avec, his guest was Pierre-Yves Basson, who is the chair of the Cameroon Medical Doctors Trade Union. In French, it is abbreviated CIMEC. He wanted to come for the program 2 weeks ago. He was banned from leaving Bamenda. And yesterday again, there's a program here at Canal International called La Reine. He wanted to come and take part in the program. The Minister of Health is said to have called, and then the program got suspended. In your opinion, is that a sign that the press freedom of this country is deteriorating, or will you share the government's point of view that the statements of Mr. Basson would have created a kind of insecurity, a kind of rabble rouser to create problems in the country? What is your own view on that?
Thank you very much for bringing that practical example, which is current within our context, Cameroon per se. That only paints a picture of how there's a lot of interference in the activities of media organs in this country. Where interests are at stake, you will find the stakeholders stepping in as soon as possible. But I think, and I should propose, and I know that in case you have a contrary view with what I have, you should be frank enough to say, let us engage a debate. You be frank enough to say, okay, if you're inviting him, I'm going to send my official in charge of communication, or I'm going to send the Secretary of State, whosoever. I'm going to send a director in terms of in charge of a particular department to be part of the panel, so that we exchange the opinions and let the public judge who is saying what is right and who is saying what's not right. For instance, we have situations where government ministers have been accused, but none of them opt to come and clear the air. Of course, you and I know the issue of Carl Kabamalboom. The Prime Minister's office indicted, the Minister of Finance indicted in the recently African Commission of Olympics organization, the elections, that our own candidate from Cameroon was disqualified. Now we have the information going out, but the government is silent. It's not coming out to say, but this information is false. This is our backing. And so you leave the room for the common man at the grassroots to believe whatsoever information is sent out there. So there's need for government to be proactive. And when you hear that a guest is blocked, is banned from not taking part in a televised program, that even provides an opportunity for you to listen to what he's going to say and proffer solutions, or rather, react to what he's going to say. Mm-hmm. You banned him, you keep him away, and you leave the common man to believe him. Whereas, if you come on the same set, and he brings up his point, you elaborate on your plan of action or what is in the agenda. The common man will understand that in as much as the civil society must agitate, this is the plan of government. So we lack that in this country, and we think if we must emerge, our institutions should be proactive enough to come out and explain to Cameroonians what they should know about government policy, what they should know about government programs, what they should know about implementation of these programs and the time frames.
Don't you think that the fact that the government acts the way they have acted is simply because they have run out of ideas, hence they do the way they are doing?
Well, running out of ideas, I don't think, because I believe that each institution or each ministry has got the sufficient resources, the sufficient manpower to tackle some of these issues that may come up. But if they think that they cannot defend themselves enough, why not call a press conference and put the facts on the table and let the press do the analysis?
Okay, now from your presentation, you are a member of a pool of journalists of the UN Center for Human Rights. And now, what has been your position on the merry-go-round of arrest of journalists? We have, I think, about 9 journalists currently in detention. What has been your position on that?
Well,
the star case is, of course, Ahmed Baba.
Well, definitely. First of all, we speak on different platforms, and we denounce such actions taken against men and women of the fourth estate, as you may want to put it in Cameroon's context, but I think the press should call the shot of being the first estate anyway, because the press is there to inform the public on the state of affairs. And I think that within the pool of journalists with the United Nations Center for Democracy and Human Rights, we work in a synergy with the center with headquarters in Yaoundé. And so from our different platforms that we seek to inform the public, we also make our statement there. But our activities are also supervised by the UN Center for Human Rights and Democracy for Central Africa.
And now let me ask you, since today we have this competition between old media, what we are doing with new media, which is social platforms, social networks such as Facebook, WhatsApp, and whatever. There is an idea that came up. Somebody floated it, or I think if I say it, I'm not abusing. It's called Solomon Agborem, who said there is a rumor going around that the government is going to pay out some adverts to some newspapers, Star newspaper, Eden, and a number of newspapers to promote the recruitment of policemen and women in West Cameroon. And the problem was this same government has arrested a number of journalists in the Star, not the Star, maybe not yet the Star, the Sun, should this English-speaking newspaper, the Post, the Star, Sun, Eden, receive adverts from a government that is persecuting journalists, arresting them, obstructing freedom of speech?
Well, I think I read on the social media what
yes.
you're saying, and I want to say that publishing is business, and government before now had been working with some of the newspapers in terms of
but some say the government has been selective in their word of adverts to
well,
papers.
It's all about lobbying. It's all about canvassing.
Good, but my question is, because we're going to leave this topic, yes and no.
Yes.
Are you for these newspapers of Anglophone Cameroon who are victim of this brutal regime to receive adverts from them?
I should say that every news organ has its internal policy. An editorial policy by extension. If it warrants them that we don't deal with government on certain terms, they wouldn't deal with government. But if it does not constrain their editorial policy, which they have aligned themselves to disseminate truth and justice, It is left for the publisher to decide.
What do you make of those who think that it is tantamount to receiving blood money?
Well, blood money could be an overstatement, but I think, like I earlier indicated, this is business, and the publisher knows what is best for him or her. But if you want to relate it to the fact that the same government that has arrested their own colleagues, it is left for the individual to decide. But I think that business is business, and if the publisher thinks that this is a good deal from the government, but I don't think that the government is paying these papers to publish it. The government is simply just following its procedure that we need recruitment, and when it has to do with advertisement, of course, they select the house that they think can do the job best, and that can select that can propagate the information to the widest publicity to reach the target audience that they want. So I think that the government is not buying. The government is simply doing what it has to do. And you, Mr. Smith, if you run this program and somebody wants to sponsor the program, if you think that is not in line with the vision of what you have conceived, you have the right to say, sorry, sir, we cannot do this on the platform. So it depends on the editorial policy of the house.
Good. Now, one final question before leaving this topic on press freedom in Cameroon. Do you share the idea of people who think that the press in Cameroon has two enemies? One, the government that everybody knows, and when it comes to private print and electronic media, you have wicked, greedy proprietors, that they too are inimical to the progress of free speech in this country. Do you share that idea?
Wicked greedy proprietors, and maybe sometime I should ask, insensitive. At times, some of them are very insensitive to what happens to maybe their employees, and I think that it's the right time for the private media to step up the game and make it more competitive by way of paying attention to the human resources and the equipment. Equipping their various houses will go a long way to create the dynamics that we so desire. But I feel that the press in Cameroon can as well build a fruitful relationship in the private and with the government. What matters is, where do you stand? And if you stand for the truth, definitely not everybody will want to hear the truth. So
yeah, here is the matter of truth. It's a matter of treating your employee properly. If you don't pay someone, it's also amount to obstruction of free speech.
That's right. That's why we're calling on the proprietors to step up the game. And stepping up the game is to ensure that your employees, they have the contract, they are registered with the social insurance fund, they have working equipment at their disposal, and people don't have to use their own equipment for the benefits of the company because you don't want to fail in an assignment. We should be able to come out playing and put the cards on the table for the enabling environment for the journalists to work. So I think we've come of age in Cameroon that the private press can compete with even international press organs.
Okay, now let me ask you another question which has nothing to do with press freedom. Now it comes on this GCE palaver. Do you think the students of Anglophone Cameroon are ready to write the GCE?
For the government pushing for and to push through the agenda that children write the GCE, I think the government is not being fair to its leaders. Those
what do you mean by the government is not being fair?
The government is not fair because what I mean is you cannot put somebody under pressure to take an exam he or she hasn't prepared adequately. So our government is being unfair to the children, is being unfair to the educational system, is being unfair to those that would lead this country tomorrow, because we're going to have a rough history to recount.
What do you make of the government position that says it is a human right for children to go to school and eventually write their exams, and that those who are refusing the children from going to school are the ones on the wrong side of history?
No one has ever held the children from going to school.
But there are some people who don't want those children to go to school.
Well, I don't think I've come across that, but I know that no one has asked the children not to go to school. It has become a point where the management of the situation has transmitted a different understanding to the children.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean is this. You ask your child to go to school, and the child will rhetorically ask you, do you want me to be arrested? It's shocking. Why? Because last time he was at school, he met a policeman standing in front of the school. For the fact that the policeman cannot explain to him or her that I'm here to protect you, the child reasons differently. Because this has never occurred in his or her life. Ever.
So are you
just of a sudden, policemen are at school.
So the policemen, instead of being a force or forces of security, have become a force of insecurity.
They are now a threat to the children. And their psychology has been played upon. They don't even understand the role of the security anymore. If they are there to protect them, or if they are there to ensure that they study in a calm environment. The psychology of the children has been disturbed. And if we must succeed out of this, we should start working on the psychology of the children. And that the policemen are there to protect you. The police are there to ensure. What has even happened with the discipline masters? They don't even trust the discipline masters anymore.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but let me put this question the other way around. Do you think that this stalemate will continue till next academic year, that is September? And if yes, what can be done to turn the whole thing around?
Interesting question. We may likely have it till September if we don't work it out right now. And what's going on with the preparations and pressure to take on the GCE is just laying the blocks to raise the wall that it will be difficult for us to go over when we get to September. This is the right time to sit down and say, how do we work this out so that we have an effective and smooth start in September? You know, we were pushing and hoping that each new Monday that comes, there will be a swift takeoff of the school, but it was also, we're going behind. And it's the same thing.
What do you think the government has to do?
What the government should do right now, because I've reported a couple of stories of schools that were attacked by the unidentified individuals. And I think that if the government is willing to put a stop at this, there is need for a strategizing, a strategic measure to be put in place. First, to protect the institution. Secondly, to monitor if the culprits can be apprehended. Now, Mr. Smith, you and I know that most of these acts are usually committed in the night. But in the night, the policemen who are supposed to be to protect people and property, by the time the schools are closing, they too leave and go back to their homes or to the station. So they should secure the environment, even in the night.
Even in the night. But now, what do you make of those who think that if the Anglophone leaders of the consortium who are currently in detention are free, all these waves of insecurity is also going to subside?
Well, that may be popular demand, but you may not tell what comes in the mind, what action could be taken next when they are released. So government should be able to have a plan of action. After they are released, what next? Do we engage in another dialogue with them? Do we come out with our own terms that they should agree?
Now, between you and I, do you want the government to dialogue with them, or the government should not, or sideline them?
First of all, is to secure their release. Because there are many who are not yet tried, but they are in detention. But they are kept behind bars. Nobody cares to bring up a file and say, this is your charge. It is unfair. It is against human rights. So they should, first of all, ask them to come out and grant them bail. Thereafter, you engage a procedure. So the very first popular demand is that have them released. But before you do that, and not to get into a stalemate, get a plan of action. After their release, this is what happens.
Okay.
Maybe we engage dialogue, and after dialogue, this is what happens.
Good.
But they should have an end point, not just taking step after the next step. You should know that after this is what I'm driving at, this is what I want to arrive at. And if you don't have that, you think that if you just release them, it will calm the situation. It will not calm the situation. Get them out, the next step, this is what is going to happen, and this is what will happen, and I'm going to get here.
Okay, now
if that is not defined, we will remain at the same level.
Good. There's this other question I would like to ask before we run off this question. Is there are a number of political parties that have indicated that they will not take part at the upcoming May 20th National Day. Is it a good thing? Is it unpatriotic, as some people are saying? What is your take on it? Well,
it's first of all their rights. When we talk about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 19, it's first of all their right to express their opinion, and that has to do with to seek to impart information using the whatever media, irrespective of frontiers. So it is their right to declare their intention, and it sends a strong message that we sympathize with what is going on, and we think that there is an issue which needs to be discussed. And until we get to that discussion table, which is satisfactory to everyone, to them, there's nothing to celebrate. But I also feel that it is their own way to be patriotic to their own country, that they feel that it's not working now and we should talk about it. But if you ask me, as an individual, on my identity card, it's Cameroonian. And I think, as per history, we have a national day that it's enshrined in our constitution, and I think that as a Cameroonian, we must come out to be patriotic and also say that this is our national day. We believe in this country that we found ourselves in by God's providence, and we should engage it. But the only worry is that national days in Cameroon is not celebrated as it should be celebrated.
Thank you very much, Solomon Agborem. You are a journalist working with the Star newspaper, and it was a pleasure having you here today as guest. Please do not go away. Stay tuned to programs here on Canal de English.